You guys, I have seen a lot of Duggar weddings in my life. I mean, I've been to like 20 of them. But what happened at Jason's wedding in Tennessee? That wasn't just a wedding, that was a full blown rebellion. You saw the headlines, the crying bride, the sleeveless dress, and the rumors that Uncle Jim Bob was absolutely furious. But the photos only tell half the story. While everyone is talking about Maddie's tears at the altar, nobody is talking about what happened 5 minutes before that photo was taken. We're talking about broken rules, a first dance that shocked the entire IBLP, and a natural disaster that almost shut the whole thing down. Why was Jason laughing while his bride was crying? And did my uncle really try to stop the music? Grab your tea, because I'm Amy Duggar King, and I'm finally breaking down the wildest Duggar wedding in history. This is the story they didn't want TLC to film. Hey guys, welcome back. It's your favorite crazy cousin, Amy. Look, I've been silent about a lot of things for a long time, but I have to talk about this. I've been to, I don't even know, maybe 20 Duggar weddings in my life. I've seen the aggressive side, hugs, the chaperones hovering 3 feet away, and the terrifying loyalty vows to my uncle. But what happened in Tennessee at Jason's wedding? That wasn't just a wedding. That was a full blown rebellion. I remember seeing the first photos pop up and literally screaming. I texted my mom immediately, like, did you see this? Because for years, the world watched my cousins grow up in this tiny, restrictive box. A box where girls couldn't wear pants, boys couldn't hold hands until they put a ring on it, and everything had to be approved by the big house. But Jason just took a sledgehammer to that box. I'm so proud of him, but I also know what happens behind the scenes when you step out of line in this family. People think a wedding is just a party, but in the Duggar world, a wedding is a political statement. It's a signal of where your loyalty lies. And Jason's statement was loud and clear. I'm doing this my way. We need to talk about the shift that's happening. It's not just about a sleeveless dress or a dance floor, though we will get to that tea. It's about control slipping away from the people who held it for too long. Think about it. Usually, these weddings are in Arkansas, right in the backyard of the compound, controlled by the family machine. But Jason took his bride, his party, and his life all the way to Tennessee. That distance matters. It says something. And let's not forget the chaos that happened right before the ceremony. We're talking massive flooding, road closures, guests getting stranded. It was like the universe was trying to test them, but they pushed through. So grab your coffee or your tea, because I'm finally breaking down the wildest, most Duggar wedding in history. This is the story they didn't want TLC to film. To understand why this wedding was such a shock, you have to understand Jason. In a family of 19 kids, it's really easy to get lost in the shuffle. We call the middle boys the lost boys for a reason. You've got Jed, Jason, James, Justin. Half the time the public can't even tell them apart. But inside the family, we always knew Jason was a little different. He wasn't the loudest one, but he was always observant. He's a contractor. He builds things with his hands. And I think that gave him a kind of independence that some of the other boys didn't have early on. He wasn't just sitting around waiting for a courtship to be handed to him. He was out there working, seeing the real world, interacting with people who weren't in the IBLP cult. I think for a long time, Uncle Jim Bob thought Jason would just fall in line like the older boys. Get the approved haircut, marry the approved girl from a matching fundamentalist family, and settle down 5 minutes away from the big house. But Jason has this quiet stubbornness about him. It's a good thing. When he sets his mind to something, he does it. And you can see it in his eyes in these wedding photos. He's not looking at his dad for approval. He's not looking at the cameras. He is looking at Maddie. I think Jason realized earlier than most that the system doesn't actually work. He saw what happened with Josh. He saw what happened with Jill. And I think he decided, I'm not going to be a pawn. It's rare for the Duggar men to break away. Usually, it's the girls like Jinger or Jill who find freedom first because they marry someone who takes them out. But for a Duggar son to say, I'm changing the rules, that is huge. That shifts the power dynamic in a way my uncle probably never saw coming. Okay, let's get into the romance, because this is where the rules started shattering immediately. In the traditional Duggar world, the world of 19 kids and counting, you don't just meet someone, you don't slide into DMs, you fill out a questionnaire. Your dad talks to their dad. It's a business transaction before it's a relationship. But Jason, he met Maddie on Instagram. Yes, you heard me. Instagram, the app that we were barely allowed to use growing. Apparently, he saw her, thought she was beautiful, and just messaged her. Do you know how normal that is for the rest of the world? And do you know how scandalous that is for my family? There was no chaperone reading that first message. There was no Jim Bob hovering over the send button. It was just a guy reaching out to a girl. And that's the key difference here. Their relationship started with their agency. It wasn't arranged. It wasn't two fathers shaking hands in a conference room. It was Jason pursuing Maddie because he actually liked her. And Maddie isn't your typical fundy royalty. She's gorgeous. She's modern. She has a social media presence that isn't just Bible verse as in skirts. She has a vibe. I remember seeing her profile and thinking, wow, is Jason really going for this? Because she looked way too cool for the Tonatown compound. The fact that Jason initiated this on social media proves that he was already looking outside the bubble. He didn't want a girl who was handpicked by his parents. He wanted a connection that was real. And let me tell you, sliding into the DMs is a lot more romantic than filling out a 50-page compatibility test from the IBLP handbook. Here is the funny part that nobody talks about. It wasn't love at first sight. Well, maybe for Jason it was, but Maddie, she actually friend zoned him. Can you believe that? Duggar boy getting friend zoned? Honestly, I love that for her. It shows she wasn't just desperate to marry into a famous TV family. She made him work for it. They were just friends for a long time. In my family, men aren't used to hearing no or wait. They are raised to believe that if they want a wife, God will just deliver one. But Jason had to learn how to be a genuine friend first. He had to get to know her without the pressure of an immediate engagement. This friend zone era is actually super important because it meant they built a foundation that wasn't based on physical attraction or religious duty. They built it on conversation. They built it on shared interests. They actually hung out. I mean, as much as they could with the distance. I think this time was crucial for Jason. It humbled him. He had to pursue her heart, not just her hand. And when you look at them now, you can see that friendship. They laugh together, like really laugh. Not that polite, keep sweet giggle we were taught, but full on belly laughs. That comes from being friends first. It's something my aunt and uncle's courting rules explicitly try to prevent because they think friendship leads to temptation. But really, friendship leads to a marriage that actually lasts. Jason getting friend zoned was probably the best thing that could have happened to him because it forced him to step out of that Duggar Prince mindset and just be a regular guy trying to impress a girl. Fast forward to when they finally you started dating? Or court. If you want to use the old word, but let's be real, they were dating and the PDA, oh my gosh, the PDA was shocking. I remember seeing their engagement photos on the beach. Not only was Maddie wearing a dress that showed off her figure, which go girl, but they were touching. I don't mean the side hug where your torsos don't touch for Jesus. I mean front hugs. Hand holding, faces inches apart in the IBLP, you are taught that touching before marriage gives away pieces of your heart that you can never get back. It's designed to shame you for having natural human desires. We were terrified to even brush hands with a boy. But Jason and Maddie, they were all over each other in those photos and they posted them publicly. That is a direct defiance of the rules. It was Jason saying to the world, I don't care what my dad thinks. I love this woman. And let's talk about the chaperones or the lack of them. While I'm sure they had people around, it didn't look like the police state surveillance we grew up with. They had moments alone. They had real conversations. The physical touch you saw in those engagement pics wasn't just for show. It was a sign that they were setting their own boundaries. They weren't letting a 40-year-old rulebook dictate how they expressed love. Seeing Jason hold her hand before there was a ring on it, that was the first major red flag to the family that this wedding was going to be completely different. And spoiler alert, it was. Okay, we have to talk about the dress code because this is where the visual rebellion really started. In my family, modesty isn't just a suggestion, it's a law. You guys know the drill: high necklines, sleeves past the shoulders, skirts below the knee. We were taught that showing your collarbone or, God forbid, your shoulders was basically stumbling your brothers. But then came Maddie. When I saw the engagement photos and later the wedding dress, I literally gasped. She wore sleeveless. Not just cap sleeves that barely cover the shoulder, but full on confident modern sleeveless. To the average person, this is just a beautiful wedding dress. But in the Duggar universe, this is a protest sign made of silk and lace. For Jason to stand there next to her, smiling while she is showing skin that would have gotten us sent to our rooms for a week. That speaks volumes. It shows that he respects her autonomy more than he fears his father's rules. It's a huge shift from the days when the grooms would police their brides' outfits to make sure they were EBLP appropriate. Jason didn't try to cover her up. He let her shine. And honestly, she looked stunning. It was classy, it was elegant, but most importantly, it was her choice. And that freedom of choice is what scares the old guard the most. So, where did this rebellion go down? Not in a church hall in Arkansas, I can tell you that. They got married at the estate at Sweetwater Creek in Newport, Tennessee. This location choice was strategic. By moving the wedding hundreds of miles away from the big house, they instantly removed a layer of control. Usually, Duggar weddings are these massive production lines in Northwest Arkansas. You use the same vendors, the same decorators, the same everything. It keeps the money in the community and keeps the oversight tight. But Jason and Maddie chose the mountains. It was breathtaking. Literally, the scenery was gorgeous, but it was also a statement of separation. Tennessee is Maddie's home turf. By getting married there, Jason was physically stepping into her world rather than forcing her to conform entirely to his. It's a symbolic move. He's saying, my future isn't just in Arkansas, it's wherever we build it together. Plus, getting 300 guests to travel that far weeds out the people who are just there to spy and keeps the ones who actually care about you. It was a destination wedding, but the destination was freedom. But you guys, it almost didn't happen. And I'm not being dramatic. Mother Nature literally tried to cancel this wedding. Just days before the ceremony, the Newport area was hit hard by the aftermath of the hurricane. We're talking massive flooding, roads underwater, and devastation in the town. For a minute, everyone thought, are they going to cancel? I mean, people were stranded. The venue was in a disaster zone. It was chaotic, but, and this is classic Duggar resilience mixed with Jason's stubbornness, they pushed forward. Some people criticized them for it, asking if it was insensitive to party while the town was underwater. But knowing Jason, he probably saw it as we made a covenant and we are keeping it rain or shine. It added this intense, high stakes energy to the whole weekend. You had guests navigating detours, family members packing survival kits just to get there. It felt less like a wedding and more like a mission. And in a way, surviving that chaos together probably bonded them even more than a perfect sunny day would have. No, let's talk about the room. Imagine 300 people. On one side, you have Maddie's family and friends, normal, modern, probably wondering why there are so many cameras. And on the other side, you have the IBLP royalty. My uncle Jim Bob was there along with the siblings and the tension. Well, you could cut it with a knife. Usually at these weddings, everyone looks the same, talks the same, and believes the same. But here, you had a mix. You had the modest crew judging the sleeveless crew. You had the people who follow the rules versus the people who were there to celebrate the rule breaking. And poor Jim Bob, I heard he looked uncomfortable. He's used to being the king of the castle, the center of attention, the one who gives the blessing and controls the mic. But at this wedding, he was just a guest at a party that violated half of his handbook. Seeing him have to sit there and witness a wedding that he didn't orchestrate, that must have been a reality check. The control is gone and the guest list proved it. The circle is widening and he's not the gatekeeper anymore. The moment the doors opened and we finally saw the full look. Wow. I've talked about the sleeveless thing, but it wasn't just that. It was the vibe. Maddie didn't look like a cult bride. She didn't have that heavy, fearful look we've seen on so many young girls in this circle. She looked radiant, confident, and sexy. Yes, I said sexy. She's a bride. She's supposed to look beautiful for her husband. But in our family, sexy is a dirty word. You're supposed to look pure and sweet. Maddie looked like a woman who knows her worth. And Jason's reaction, he didn't look scandalized. He looked like he won the lottery. The dress had a silhouette that actually showed she had a body. Another no, it wasn't a sack. It was tailored, it was modern, and it was perfect. Seeing her walk down that aisle, I just thought, good for you, girl. She didn't compromise her style to please her father-in-law. And that's a hard thing to do when your father-in-law is Jim Bob Duggar. That dress was more than fabric. It was a flag of independence planted right in the middle of the ceremony. Okay, we have to talk about the photo. You know the one. It's the image that broke the internet. Maddie standing at the altar, wiping tears from her eyes, looking visibly distressed while Jason is just standing there. When I first saw it, my stomach dropped. As a woman, your wedding day is high stakes. You want it to be perfect. But to see a bride looking that overwhelmed, it triggered every alarm bell in the fan base. The internet immediately jumped to conclusions. She's regretting it. She's trapped. And honestly, I get why people thought that. In our family's history, we've seen girls walk down the aisle looking terrified because they barely knew the guy. But here is where context matters. I don't think Maddie was crying because she didn't want to be there. I think she was crying because the pressure cooker finally exploded. Think about it. She's marrying into the most scrutinized family in America. She has cameras on her face. She has Jim Bob in the front row, probably fuming about her dress. She has 300 eyes on her. And on top of that, they just survived a literal flood to get there. That wasn't a trapped cry. That was a release cry. It was the moment the adrenaline wore off and the reality hit. But the image itself, it's iconic because it perfectly captures the tension of the day. It's beautiful, but it's heavy. It's not the shiny, happy people smile we're used to seeing. It's raw, messy emotion. And in the Duggar world, messy is rarely allowed. Oh, no, let's address the other half of that photo, Jason laughing. Oh, Jason, this is where I have to roast him a little bit, but also defend him. While Maddie is wiping tears, he's cracking up. People called it a red flag. They said he was insensitive, that he didn't care about her feelings. But here is the Duggar boy reality check. These men are often socially awkward when it comes to big emotions. They aren't taught emotional intelligence, they're taught authority. When things get heavy or uncomfortable, they deflect. I think Jason wasn't laughing at her. I think he was laughing because of the chaos. It was a nervous laugh. It was, I can't believe we actually made it to the altar laugh. Is it a bad look? 100%. You want your groom to be comforting you, holding your hand, maybe shedding a tear himself. But instead, he looked like he was at a comedy show. It shows the disconnect that still exists. He's trying to be the cool, unbothered guy, but his bride is having a very real moment. It's a learning curve. He's stepping out of the IBLP, but you can't undo 20 years of emotional suppression overnight. That laugh was a defense mechanism, plain and simple. He was terrified too. Did anyone else catch the vows? Because I was listening closely. In a traditional IBLP wedding, the vows are very specific. The woman vows to obey and submit. It's about transferring authority from father to husband. It's legalistic and frankly demeaning, but Jason and Maddie, they flipped the script. While we didn't get a full transcript released to the public yet, the vibe of the ceremony was partnership, not ownership. They focused on loving each other, serving each other, and building a life together. If the word obey was missing, that is a massive deal. Dropping obey is the ultimate rebellion in our circle. It says, I am your equal, not your property. And knowing Maddie, there is no way she was going to stand there and promise to be a silent servant. She has too much fire for that. And Jason, by agreeing to those vows, he's publicly rejecting the patriarchal model his father built an empire on. He's saying, I don't want a servant. I want a wife. That shift in language changes the entire foundation of their marriage compared to his older brothers. Okay, grab a fan because we need to discuss the kiss. The dip kiss heard round the world. Usually, Duggar first kisses are painful to watch. Let's be real, it's two people who have never touched, smashing their faces together awkwardly in front of 1,000 people. It's stiff. It's weird. But Jason and Maddie, that was a movie kiss? He dipped her. He held her. It was passionate. It wasn't just a peck to seal the deal, it was a statement. It showed chemistry. It showed that they are actually physically attracted to each other, which, believe it or not, is not always a given in arranged marriages. The way he dipped her showed confidence. It showed that they had probably practiced or at least dreamed about it. It wasn't the tentative, scared movement of a boy who thinks he's sinning. It was the bold move of a man who is claiming his moment. And for the conservative guests in the audience, that much passion at the altar probably made them clutch their pearls. But for the rest of us, we were cheering. Finally, a couple that looks like they actually want to be married to each other. And then the reception. This is where the wheels completely fell off the bus for Uncle Jim Bob. They had dancing. And I don't mean a sway, I mean a dance floor with lights, a DJ, and rhythm. Growing up, we were told that dancing stirs up sensual desires that can't be fulfilled outside of marriage. So it was banned. Vertical motion only, as they used to say. So to see Jason Duggar out there spinning his wife, moving to the beat, that is the final nail in the coffin of his IBLP life. The first dance is a normal tradition for 99% of the world, but for a Duggar son, it's a public resignation from the cult. It's a physical act of joy that goes against everything Guthard taught. And let me tell you, the energy in that room must have been electric. Half the room was probably terrified to move their hips, and the other half was living their best life. Jason choosing to dance wasn't just about fun, it was about freedom. He was literally dancing on the grave of the rules that tried to keep him stiff and controlled his whole life. The question everyone keeps asking me is, where was Jim Bob? And did he really leave early? Let's break down the rumors. We know he was there. There are photos of him sitting in the front row looking, well, less than thrilled. But the tea is that he allegedly dipped out before the party really got started. Now, I can't confirm exactly when his car pulled away, but it makes total sense. Jim Bob Duggar does not do dance floors. He does not do sleeveless dresses, and he definitely does not do losing control. Staying at that reception would have meant endorsing everything he has spent 40 years preaching against. Leaving early is a power move he has used before. It's a way of saying, I am here because I have to be, but I do not approve. It's a silent protest. By walking out, he removes his blessing from the festivities. But here is the kicker nobody cared. In the old days, his departure would have ruined the mood. Everyone would have been whispering, oh no, Dad is mad. But at Jason's wedding, the party went on. The music kept playing. That is the real headline. His disapproval doesn't stop the show anymore. He left and the joy stayed. That is a massive changing of the guard. Let's talk about the vibe because the details matter. Usually a Duggar reception is, let's just say, budget conscious. We're talking parking lot pickles, assembly, line tacos, and maybe some ice cream if you're lucky. It's functional, not festive. But Jason and Maddie, they served Italian. They had cheesecake. They treated their guests like guests, not just props for a TV show. And the music, it wasn't just hymns. They had a playlist. They had secular love songs. Do you know how many times we were told that secular music opens the door to the devil? To hear a regular pop song at a Duggar event is wild. It shows that Jason is listening to the world around him. He's not afraid of culture. He understands that a love song is just a love song, not a spiritual attack. Every bite of food and every beat of the music was a choice to embrace abundance over restriction. It was a celebration of life, not just a solemn religious ceremony. It felt normal. And for this family, normal is the most rebellious thing you can be. Where do you go after a wedding like that? Italy. Yes, Italy. Not a road trip to a cabin in Arkansas. Not a missionary trip disguised as a honeymoon. A legit, romantic European vacation. This trip represents financial independence. You can't fly to Italy on a Jim Bob allowance. This tells me Jason has his own money, his own business, and his own plan. He's not relying on the family trust fund that comes with strings attached. Italy is a place of art, history, wine, and culture. Things we were taught to be wary of. Seeing them post photos eating pasta and exploring ancient ruins, it makes me so happy. It's the honeymoon every young couple deserves, but so few of my cousins got. It's a time for them to bond without looking over their shoulder. It's the start of their life as world travelers, not just compound dwellers. They are literally broadening their horizons. Notice something interesting after the wedding: the silence. Usually after a big Duggar event, the family account posts 1,000 pictures. Look how blessed we are! Look how many people came! But this time, it was quiet. Jason and Maddie went relatively dark, and the main family page wasn't spamming us with updates. Why? Because they know the backlash is coming. They know the internet is dissecting every detail: the dress, the tears, the laugh. But I also think it's about privacy. Jason and Maddie are protecting their peace. They just dropped a bomb on the family traditions, and now they are retreating to enjoy the fallout in private. It's a smart move. They aren't feeding the trolls. They aren't trying to justify their choices to the haters or the ultra conservative fans. They are just living. That silence is actually a sign of maturity. They don't need the likes, they just need each other. So, what does this all mean? Is the IBLP crumbling? Is the umbrella of authority officially broken? I think Jason's wedding is the proof we've been waiting for. We've seen the daughters leave, Jill, Jinger, but seeing a son stay in the faith but leave the legalism is a game changer. The grandkids are watching. The younger siblings are watching. If Jason can marry a modern girl, dance at his wedding, and fly to Italy, why can't they? He has set a precedent. The fear is gone. This wedding wasn't just about Jason and Maddie. It was a funeral for the old way of doing things. The strict, controlling, fear-based empire my uncle built is losing its grip, one wedding at a time. And as their cousin, I am here for it. I am cheering them on. To Jason and Maddie, welcome to the real world. It's messy, it's loud, and sometimes you cry at the altar, but at least you're free. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll keep watching so you don't have to.